that's what it's, it's recognition. It's recognizing and making the adjustments, with certain things. And so, there's a lot of ways to build and answer questions in this industry, especially when you're getting started. But it's just about recognizing you got to lean forward and try. Maybe find a mentor, use the software. But that's one of the things I think that is unique about what I do with LTA is that I've noticed that there's a gap in what you said and like retention. Maybe on the software is that people don't even know, they don't even understand the values of what can be done with the system because from an operator viewpoint that has to discover things, it's just a different conversation, right? Than that I bring, because it's I discovered along with the help of the software, but I discovered the value of how this thing can give you that foundational growth that you could not find on your own.
Yeah.
I mean, the interior networking that's available is something that you can do from the very beginning of your business by just getting the software.
Yeah.
And then from there, the hard part of, going out and finding customers, that's the hard part. But going in and using the tools available in the software, this is actually, a one up.
Yeah.
And so, that is, that's just something that, most people don't know and they don't value it. And so that's why they drop off of the software, because they think, oh, I don't need this. And, they're going to mom and pop it and they're going to, PayPal receipts or take cash. And their mentality is not of the understanding of how this company could be a $500,000 business for you a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They're not they look at it as you're just a driver. And, not understanding that this is a business that can really give you some independence that you never could have imagined.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you mentioned, the one up in Kobe, because huge fan of Kobe, RIP Kobe. I always remember that Kobe was the first one in the gym and the last to leave. He outworked everyone because he knew that if I didn't outwork these other players, then what ends up happening is I lose my chance, or I lose my shot at greatness. And so he had a scope, he had his sights set on greatness. And as you talk about this level or this one up, or even the game of, even in this space, a lot of them get to level one and they can't make it past level one. And so they just quit the game and they say, you know what, this game sucks. It's not for me. I'm going to move on to another game. But the reality is, with that mentor can teach you, this is what you need to do in level one to get to level two. And if you don't have that early on, you're going to make those mistakes. You're going to lose, 9 times out of 10. And then if you're at that 9th time and you're saying, well, you know what, I tried this so many times and it's just not working. And there's fear of reaching out to somebody to look as if, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, or I'm immature in the space, or I'm ignorant of what I should be doing next. It doesn't demean you to seek help, right? And I think we could talk a little bit about the premise of LTA, because ultimately, as a lot of these operators and drivers and independent operators, if they're not seeking that training and that growing, and this just isn't to the transportation industry, this is across the board for any entrepreneurship or any business owner. If you're not looking to find areas where you can improve or get leadership or mentorship, then you'll find yourself basically saying, hey, what do they say, hitting your head up against a brick wall because you just can't figure it out. But the speed to getting to those answers and the speed to resolving some of those issues is to find somebody who's done it before, right? And so to me, I'm leading this to the LTA, right? To understand what can they get from LTA that will assist them in understanding how to get from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 and beyond.
Well, they'll get a roadmap. I mean, they'll get a blueprint. Just like you mentioned, one of it's not the only way to get somewhere, but one of the best ways to get somewhere is to ask someone who knows how to get there,
Yeah.
or who's been there before, or who's doing what you want to do. Back to Kobe, if you want to be a star basketball player, well, go and look at what a star basketball player does to be that, and to maintain that level. And so that's what they'll get, is a blueprint and a flashlight. They'll get a pathway to success, a roadmap, a timeline of what to expect, a breakdown of what is going to be required to do this. And also they're going to get mentorship, the mentality, not only the structural setup of this, but the actual mentality behind, that's needed to go with the instructions, in order to put that love and that sauce on the business that's going to help you retain customers, help you be able to take advantage of opportunities. It gives you that experience that would take you years to obtain. You'll have an opportunity to grow at a much faster rate, because you'll have a understanding of principles and where the cheese is, so to speak, from the very beginning. My program, it gives you, and I don't throw numbers out for some gimmick. I throw it out as a realistic, bar, so to speak, or when you play sports in the basketball room, we had a bar in the locker room that you had to jump and hit to work on your vertical.
Yeah.
So so the bar is I can give you a $250,000 a year blueprint, and that's based off of two simple processes. Is one, I show you how to make $100,000 a year with one vehicle, and then we double that with two. All right, with the right combination of vehicles, you can easily generate a $250,000 a year business. Yeah. And this is no hoax or no scam. This is the right combination of two vehicles. You can generate well over $200,000 a year in this business.
Which I think is going to be key, and I love the blueprint, the roadmap, the timeline. But the one thing that really stood out to me is that flashlight. Oftentimes people are navigating, and they're navigating essentially in the dark, or we talked about, navigating blind. Correct. Well, the reality is, with that flashlight, it opens up your view to see so much more of the potential of Correct. Where you're going. And then that should drive excitement to say, hey, you know what, where am I at on this roadmap, right? Where am I at in this timeline? And this is what I have to look forward to, right? I have to look forward to the next step on this timeline. And if it's to get to that 100,000 with the one vehicle, and double that with the two vehicles, I know I know what's next, right? As opposed to, well, hey, I got this one vehicle, I don't have any clients, I don't know what's next, woe me, because one, I just got this vehicle and I got a bill that's coming up in 30 days, right? Mm-hmm. And I need to be able to afford that based off of my expenses and what I have coming in. But with that being the trajectory for a lot of these operators that come into LTA, there should be a level of success that comes from that, because now I can see a lot clearer, right? I can see the future of my business as opposed to the wonder and the hope, right? And a lot of leaders will say you can't take hope to the bank, right?
Correct.
But what you can though is you can take that blueprint for your business to the bank, and they can see that this is a trusted investment for that bank to invest in, or whether it's other investors or OPM, other people's money that will be willing to invest in you because they see that you have a blueprint. They see what the timeline is and the trajectory of the business, what you can achieve within that first year, right, or within a certain time frame. So I think that's key, and a lot of people have to understand that is if you're fearful of making the investment as a business owner and as an entrepreneur, it is required that you make the necessary investments to advance your business, to advance to the next level. And as they make that investment, right, they can start to see the fruits of their labor because it's going to get them there faster, but more efficient, right? And they can alleviate or minimize the amount of obstacles that are coming to play because now they have a trusted advisor or a trusted community that they can lean on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so much. I mean, there's so much we're going to talk about. So much to unpack. The mentality behind, what it takes to be successful in this business. I mean, we have so much to discuss when it comes to that because there's just so much. Working with people, being accountable. Having vision, having the right appetite, respecting the business and valuing the business makes you valuable.
Yeah.
Right? It makes you valuable because the person on the other side, they recognize that, oh, this guy values my business, so he's going to take care of my customer.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yep.
And, this translates into trust, and trust in business means revenue. So, we can unpack, different things, scenarios, for the rookies. I do this for the newcomers who want to do it right, and for the existing operators who need a fresh start, who need to sharpen their pencil. Just because you've been in the game for a couple of years, that don't mean you've been doing it right. You just been doing it. And, there's a lot of people with the wrong mentality that are in the industry. A little change in attitude and processes, and it could make an increase in your bottom line, 10 or 15%.
Yeah.